So I think we're ready to start. Good afternoon, distinguished guests, colleagues and participants. My name is Sanji Singh. I'm with the Environment and Development Division under ESCAP, and I'll be your MC for the first part of this side event titled Confronting the Silent Crisis, Addressing Land Subsidence Through Regional Cooperation and Action. Just a few quick housekeeping notes before we start. So this is a hybrid event. So for participants online, please keep your microphones muted unless you are invited to speak. If you'd like to intervene, please raise your hand in the room or use the raise hand function on Teams, and we'll as time permits, we'll make provision for your interventions. We also are running a very tight 60-minute program, and we kindly request all speakers to adhere to the timeframes that have been allocated. So for today's session, we're focusing on addressing land subsidence as a growing but often under-recognized urban risk. We will move from regional evidence to city and national experience, highlighting practical approaches to monitoring, groundwater management, and preventive urban planning to reduce long-term vulnerability. This session also convenes the Sinking Cities Community of Practice under the regional initiative Confronting the Silent Crisis of Asian Pacific Sinking Cities, under the China ESCAP Corporation, funded by the China ESCAP Corporation program. And really the purpose is to strengthen peer learning and collective capacity across the region. And with that, I'd like to invite our first speaker, Ms. Letizia Rosano, who is the director of the Asia and Pacific Center for the Development of Disaster Information Management, to deliver opening and welcome remarks. Over to you, Ms. Rosano. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Sanji, for the kind welcome and opening. Welcome, everyone. And Excellencies, distinguished delegates, colleagues, and partners. As the director of UPDIM, I'm not going to spell it all out since Sanjay did it for me, a regional institution of ESCAP dedicated to strengthening disaster risk information, risk analytics, and data governance across Asia and the Pacific. It is my pleasure to welcome you to this side event on confronting the silent crisis, addressing lead subsidence through regional cooperation and city action, held in the context of the 13th Asia-Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development. UPDIM is honored to work closely with ESCAP's Environment and Development Division, UN Habitat, and our member states to address land subsidence as an increasingly significant risk to sustainable urban development in our region. Recognizing the growing importance of this issue, UPDIM has actively collaborated with partners to strengthen the evidence base, promote knowledge exchange, and elevate lead subsidence as a regional priority. Lead subsidence is emerging as a critical challenge affecting cities across Asia and the Pacific, occurring gradually beneath rapidly expanding urban areas. It weakens infrastructure, increases vulnerability to flooding, and threatens essential services, water security, and economic stability. This phenomenon is now clearly recognized as a systemic urban risk with far-reaching implications for sustainable development. Cities such as Dhaka, Bangkok, Jakarta, and several urban centers in the Islamic Republic of Iran, including Tehran, Mashhad, and Isfahan, are already experiencing measurable ground sinking, driven primarily by groundwater depletion, urban growth, and unsustainable resource management. These processes weaken infrastructure, increase vulnerability to flooding, and threaten essential services, placing communities, livelihoods, and economic systems under growing strain. Although advances in monitoring and scientific analysis have improved our understanding of this phenomenon, important gaps remain in risk information, institutional coordination, and policy integration. Strengthening access to reliable risk data and supporting risk-informed decision-making are essential to helping cities integrate land subsidence risks into long-term planning. In response to this growing challenge, ESCAP, through its Environment and Development Division, together with UPDIM, UN Habitat, and partners, launched the regional initiative Confronting the Silent Crisis of Asia-Pacific Sinking Cities. This regional effort aims to strengthen technical capacity, improve risk monitoring and data governance, and supports cities in developing evidence-based solutions. Under this regional effort, city-level activities will be implemented in selected pilot cities in Bangladesh and the Islamic Republic of Iran, UPDIM's host country. Through its mandate, UPDIM contributes to facilitate collaboration between scientific institutions, policymakers, and technical agencies, helping to ensure that scientific knowledge is translated into actionable guidance. A key outcome of this regional collaboration has been the establishment of this sinking cities community of practice. This platform provides an important mechanisms for regional cooperation, enabling peer learning, technical exchange, and dialogue among cities, scientific institutions, and policymakers. By fostering collaboration and shared understanding, it supports coordinated responses to a challenge that no city or country can address alone. I am encouraged by the strong engagement of member states, development partners, and scientific institutions on this critical and rapidly emerging issue. I would also like to thank our co-organizers and partners, including the governments of the Islamic Republic of Iran and the People's Republic of China, as well as our ESCAP and UN partners for their commitment and cooperation in organizing this event. Looking ahead, UPDIM remains fully committed to supporting member states and partners in strengthening land subsidence risk knowledge and enhancing science-based decision-making and solutions for resilient and sustainable urban development across Asia and the Pacific. Through continued collaboration and shared commitment, we can help ensure that cities across the region are better prepared and to manage land subsidence and build a more resilient and sustainable future. I really look forward to today's discussion and to our continued collaboration in addressing this important and urgent challenge. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Rosanna, for setting the context and emphasizing the regional importance of this agenda. Next, I'd like to invite Mr. Ahmed Abu Diat, who is the representative from the Embassy of the Islamic Republic of Iran, to provide opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Ambassador. Madam Moderator, sorry. Good afternoon, colleagues, distinguished representatives and participants. I would like to thank the ESCAP Secretariat as well as UN Habitat and UPDIM for co-organizing this event. Furthermore, I want to extend our appreciations to the government of China and our colleague here, Mr. Hauran, I hope I'm pronouncing correctly, for supporting this initiative. Last December, the Community of Practice on Sinking Cities was formed to act as a regional platform for inclusive knowledge sharing and a basis for collaboration. In relation to the fulfillment of Sustainable Development Goals, addressing land subsidence is in part or fully related to 6 out of 17 SDGs. Furthermore, land subsidence is negatively correlated with issues that may in part go beyond the scope of SDGs, such as disaster risk reduction that is governed by other international instruments, such as Sendai framework. In other words, a multidimensional challenge, such as land subsidence, which tends to be transboundary, is indicative of how international and regional cooperation should evolve in coming years, as opposed to single target solutions and reductionist goals. Usually, when we encounter a complex problem, the logical step is to divide it into smaller parts and prioritize so that we can easily identify solutions. This is why creating a platform that focuses on cities, which also address broader environmental impact of land subsidence, is a step in the right direction. This is, of course, not saying that we should ignore the larger ecosystem, but the more immediate priority at hand is to save cities that are home to millions of people. Needless to say, land subsidence have shown to exacerbate cascading effects of natural disasters, such as earthquakes or floods. This is why the importance of a regional body such as the Community of Practice for Sinking Cities cannot be overstated. Distinguished colleagues, as we begin to share data, experiences, and best practices, we may very well identify standardized approaches. Nevertheless, each city has a life of its own. For example, what we may work in a Tehran metropolitan area, which is in a mountainous region affected by droughts, may be quite different from what is applicable in a semi-coastal city such as Bangkok. Therefore, I would like to stress the importance of localized approaches as well as historical and indigenous nature-based solutions, such as ancient granite systems, that can ameliorate excessive groundwater extraction. Furthermore, identifying the extent to which these approaches can be applied elsewhere is a noteworthy endeavor, which we believe the community of practice can accomplish. I'm looking forward to hearing from representatives gathered here today to know more about their experiences, as well as the best practices and solutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Abu Diat, for those remarks and for highlighting the importance, I think, both of regional cooperation and the need for identifying standardized approaches to address this challenge, including the incorporation of nature-based solutions. And I think, yeah, that is a good segue to our next speaker. And we now move into the next part of the agenda, which is around a scene setting segment to ground the discussion in practical examples of how cities can translate data and policy into action at scale, and especially through nature-based solutions. And I am very pleased to invite Mr. Ma Haoran, who's the Chief Engineer of Landscape Architecture and Landscape Research Institute, Chinese Academy of Urban Planning and Design under the Ministry of Housing and Urban Rural Development. With that, Mr. Ma, the floor is yours. Over to you.
Thank you. Show the PPT?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Ma Haoran from the China Academy of Urban Planning and Design. Today, I'm honored to present a report titled 10 Years of Practice and the Future Outlook of Smart City Construction in China. Next. Okay, the first part will review the decade-long journey of smart city construction in China. Next. The theme of today's meeting is solving land subsidence. In China, solving land subsidence is a systematic project that includes specific measures such as subsidence monitors 3 satellites emerge, reducing groundwater extraction, artificially recharging groundwater, and sponge city construction. My presentation today will focus on China's experience in sponge city construction. Next. The sponge city is a unique Chinese approach deeply rooted in our ancient water management wisdom, such like the Water One concept, while also integrating global best practice such as low impact development and water sensitive urban design. Next. Continue with the connotation, we must understand the challenges. China's rapid urban development over the past 3 decades has caused water scarcity, pollution, and frequent water logging. Many cities lack water on normal days, but flood during very heavies. Next. Therefore, the connotation of smart city construction goes beyond facilities. It is a systematic, holistic, and long-term vision for urban development, embodying ecological civilization and a new model for a sustainable city building. Next. Next, let's look at the achievement and the 6 major approach we have used to promote smart city in China. To ensure effective implementation, we have adopted a multi-factor strategy built on 6 aspects: strong policy guidance, deep integration into urban planning, continuous technological innovation, learning through pilots and demonstrations, and rigorous performance evaluation. Next. On the past 10 years, these efforts has led to remarkable progress. We now have 90 national level and over 130 provincial level pilot cities, and more than 10 national standards have been established. Our focus has successfully shifted from individual projects to building complete systems. Next. Now let's look ahead to the future direction of smart city development. Next. We have 5 key directions. First, we need to plan the development path in more systematic way. Second, we will advance construction across whole regions. Third, we will apply full life cycle management to the entire smart city system. Fourth, we will build facilities that serve the multi-functions. And fifth, we will carry out localized designs that fits the unique needs of each place. Next. The first direction, we will focus on systematic planning of smart city development paths. We need to focus on 3 key coordinations. Coordinations inside and outside the system. We must link the urban water system with the broader basin or regional water system. Linkage between subsystems. We need to better connect water security, environmental treatment, and resource supply within the urban water system. Integration inside and outside subsystems. This means balancing resource use with disaster prevention and integrating flood controls with water lodging management. Next. The second direction is multi-scale. We need to advance smart city construction across whole regions, working at different scales from the basin down to individual buildings. In our work across different scales, our focus also varies. By doing this, we can create a resilient water cycle system across multi-scales. Next. Next is full life cycle management and control. This means we need to follow the natural water cycle in everything we do, from the very beginning of planning through construction, operation, and all the way to maintenance and management. This ensures the smart city system works well at every stage. We also need to build multi-functional smart city facilities. This means deeply integrating the smart city concept into all parts of urban development. We call this sponge plus and plus sponge strategy. For example, in Ningbo, we use sponge plus for renovating old areas, combining it with solving traffic jams. Next. Another way to make facility multifunctions is to deeply integrate them with the landscape. Also, you can see from the examples in Yangzhou, we can combine smart facilities like permeable paths, water inlets, and green roofs with beautiful gardens and plants. And this way, the city becomes more functional and more beautiful at the same time. Next. Of course, okay, next. Of course, China is not alone in this. Many cities around the world have great solutions. Cities like Singapore, Berlin, and Portland have used the creative smart city solutions that enhance resilience and quality of life. Looking even further ahead, there are 9 key directions for the future of urban water management in China. Providing higher quality water supply service, using more precious strategies to save water, using more seawater, building lower carbon wastewater treatment plants, making sewage collection system more efficient, using reclaimed water more widely, using a more systematic and holistic approach to govern water, using more blue-green elements like water and green space in our solutions, using smarter and more digital way to manage water. Next. Finally, we must address a new challenge. land uplift from rising water tables, which requires carefully dynamic management. In conclusion, smart city construction in China has come a long way in the past decades, achieving significant results. Looking forward, we will continue to build a more resilient and sustainable city by adopting a more systematic, holistic, and localized approach, while also learning from global best practice and addressing new challenges as they arise. We're also very glad to support the city in Pacific regions to deal with this problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Haran, for that practical and insightful overview and for illustrating how integrated planning and infrastructure approaches can reduce land subsidence risk while strengthening broader urban resilience outcomes. I think China's experience in sponge cities is very valuable for the region, and we appreciate you sharing this knowledge through this community of practice, and we hope to, find further opportunities and platforms to share this knowledge and experience. So thank you very much for your presentation. We now move to our panel presentations and discussions, and it is my pleasure to hand over now to Mr. Kurt Garrigan, who's the Chief of the Sustainable Urban Development section, and who will moderate the rest of the session and lead us through the remainder of the program. And we will do just a quick switch in terms of speakers and yes.
Thank you all very much. I can invite Tanapon to come on up to the table. Mr. Tanapon, if you would. As we make this quick switch, let me also thank everyone for joining today, and a special thanks to the co-organizers and to Aptim and UN Habitat for jointly implementing the Sinking Cities project. As Sanji said, we're grateful to the People's Republic of China for its support to raise awareness and to mainstream effective solutions through the China ESCAP cooperation program, and to MOHERD, specifically Mr. Ma, for sharing its expertise on sponge city construction, a successful integration of urban planning and water management. As you've already heard, the issues of land subsidence and groundwater depletion are emerging as one of the most serious risks to cities across this region. Linking science and policy to local action, while also enhancing national systems for monitoring and prevention, are critical elements to address. And we will hear from 3 speakers who will give brief overviews of their work on these issues before we proceed to an open discussion. Before we begin, let me again mention the community of practice that has been established through the Sinking Cities project and invite any interested stakeholders to join that community of practice, which will continue well beyond this project and probably into the years to come as we continue to work with cities and national governments on this issue. First, to offer perspective on technical and research capacities and enabling science policy integration, let me welcome Mr. Tanapon Pimon, Senior Research Fellow from the Stockholm Environment Institute, for his presentation. Tanapon, over to you.
So thank you very much, Kirk and UN ESCAP for this invitation. So Sawasdee krap, everyone. My name is Tanapon Piman. I'm from the Stockholm Environment Institute, Asia Center in Bangkok. So I'm a water cluster lead, and I'm very happy again to contribute my research knowledge and experience on land subsidence, particularly on the sinking city in this meeting. So what I would like to share to you today is about how we use science research to support policy decision making and urban planning to better to combat, on this issue. So next, please. So yeah, what I would like to start, this is my favorite figure from the research to show how the speed of land subsidence in different countries around the world. I think this is also a powerful kind of information from the research that can visualize information and give very clear hotspot and where they are, on the problems in the world. And if you look at the map, I mean the dark blue show very high speed of vertical like drop down or land subsidence, in different cities around the world. And next, please. And if you see this map, sorry, go back. If you see this map, you can see that the fastest rate are concentrated in Asia, So that's why in these regions, we are very kind of we are facing a very critical challenge on this topic. And in the past, particularly Bangkok, our city also, my city also faced this problem, on land subsidized because of over extraction of the groundwater use in the past when they try to expand the urban area in these regions. Next, please. So when we talk about science and policy, so now what we try to do is we try to do things in parallel. One thing, of course, in terms of science, we always like to look at what are the knowledge gap, what is a new idea, what is a new method, But when we talk about interface between science and policy, I think another leg that we have to step in parallel is also look at about the policy gap and what is a barrier of current policy in integrating science into the decision making. So this is a key knowledge gap from my research on this topic regarding to the land subsidence in the coastal city. One is about insufficient long-term monitoring data and integrations. So land subsidence is depend it involves many sectors. So that's why long-term data and integrated data is very important to at least integrate, water resource management sector and urban planning sector together. So that is one focus area of policy influence. Second is a weak science policy transition mechanism. So there are a number of research on this, but it may not use, to influence policymaker, or it's based on the project-based data. So that's why it's very important to also strengthen that kind of interface. And the third policy gap, I think is common in this region, is also fragment institutional and responsibility. There are a number of authority that doing the same thing or have overlap of mandate, and they are not talk to each other. Some policy advanced, some policy is old, and some policy have gap. So this is also area that we are looking for to fill the policy gap using the science. And the last one is there is limit preventive policy approach for land subsidence. Very few cities try to protect it before it happens. But it's always repeat the same story that people start absorb land subsidence. The problem become more severe, and then they start thinking about what to do. This is kind of linear management approach, old style. That's what I say. So how we turn this old style planning into proactive planning? That's kind of research question. Next, please. So next, I would like to more emphasize on the role of long-term monitoring and research in groundwater management and urban plannings. I would like to thank the technology at the moment, in terms of remote sensing, in terms of radar, in terms of GIS, in terms of smart sensor. Now this kind of technology is accessible and it's low cost. So that's why we can use this technology to monitor change, of land subsidy for continuity and long terms, compared to the part that you have very limited, uh, technology or equipment to monitor the chain. It only observed by eye, or after the situation happen. And when when we have a long-term monitoring data. Next slide. Next click, please. Then you can see clearly that the information or long-term data can generate very useful map. In example, this is shows spatial distribution of land subsidy in Taiwan, and you can see where is a highest impact on the land subsidy. And from that, you can deep down into the research of the loss of the cost of land subsidy. Next, please. That is spatial visualization. But when you look at the time series and maybe vertical data, here it shows the let's say land subsidy rate, for different city nearby Bangkok. The red one is a Bangkok, and the other one is the suburb nearby Bangkok, like Nonthaburi, Samut Prakan, etc. But if you see now in the past, Bangkok have very high speed train or high speed tunnel, to be synced, in the past. But after the science have been integrated into the policy, I think the city level managed very well to stop groundwater pumping in the city or controlling the use of the groundwater. Then the sinking level become more stable. If you look at that kind of arrow. Next, please. And when we translate evidence into action or decision making, this is kind of pathway that I try to map it simple for everyone to understand. From science, we have to turn the science into some threshold that tricking the policy, like how much you can use the groundwater, how much we can acceptable for the land subsidence, From that threshold, turn into the national standard of urban planning or civil code, and after that, make it into regulation and enforcement. So these three examples is already kind of existing solution to stop land subsidy from using the science in terms of restriction of groundwater extraction to pricing and permission policy, reduce or slow expansion of urbanization in Delta by increase rural development, lighter structure, smart urban planning and zoning law. And the last one, restoring ecosystem and city. And I think the previous speaker already talked about the strong city. So this is not theoretical, it exists, and you can see they use they design based on 10 years, of experience and data. So that kind of proven. Yeah. Next, please. Yeah. This is my last slide. So I would like to give a lesson learned, from regional experience on prevent and early intervention. So as I mentioned now, the technology is accessible. It's very important to start invest early in integrated monitoring, modeling, and open data system, because this is very helpful to keep comprehensive science and data to support decision making. And based on my research, the sinking city, the main cause of sinking is about the groundwater use, over extractions. So that's why groundwater demand management is the most effective way to prevent the sinking city. Promote integrated groundwater and urban planning is important. And the last one, enhance policy response, regional cooperation and knowledge sharing on good practice is also a good pathway, to solve this problem together. As opening remark that mentioned very clearly, you cannot work alone on this problem. Everyone have to join hands. So thank you very much for your attention on my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Panapat. You mentioned key knowledge and policy gaps, including insufficient monitoring, weak science policy translation, fragmented institutional responsibilities, and limited preventive policy approaches. This is where a community of practice can really add some value, because many of the cities that are facing this issue have some experience in each of those areas. And other institutions, whether they be research institutions, UN entities, or other development partners, also can help fill those gaps. So thank you very much. We'll next move to hear from a city. We'll hear from Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh. Who will join us online, Lieutenant Colonel Abu Nahim Talat, who's an engineer with the Cox's Bazar Development Authority. Mr. Talat, if you could limit your presentation to about 5 minutes so that we have time for discussion at the end. Over to you.
Okay. Hi, everyone. Can you listen to me?
Yes, we can hear you very well. Please proceed.
Oh, great, great. Thank you very much. Very good morning. I do welcome you all to the presentation from the Cox's Bazar, the coastal area of Bangladesh, the coastal district of Bangladesh, the longest sea beach, 100-kilometer at a stretch. So today, the presentation on the sinking cities community of practice at Cox's Bazar, I will show you in the presentation the practical understandings and few data which we have received from different stakeholders from different organizations. This data, basically, we have received it is not really, we can say it as authenticated because it is not owned by us. So at first, the area profile of the Cox's Bazar, as you see, the topographic profile, cultural diversity, economic importance in 3 sectors. We have the sandy coastal plain, active tidal flats, low-lying territory, hills, cultural diversity we have here. Economic importance, definitely the tourism, fishing, salt production here, humanitarian activities related to refugee crisis we have here. The Rohingya issue. Then the area profile, as you see in the slide, the few graphical representations, land use, land cover of the Cox's Bazar, digital elevation, and the population density, all the red color depicting the optimum result of the weather data. Okay, you can proceed. The weather data and the map, as you see that one of the most notable trend is the steady increase in air temperature from 26 to within 26 is a very minor change in last 15 years up to 24. The surface pressure is also showing the similar patterns over the years. However, the humidity, precipitation, and wind speed shows a significant level of variations from 2015 to 24. The weather data map, the monthly patterns, as you see, graphically it is represented. The variations we used to find that the variation is not too much. You can change the slide. Next, tidal current and wave. As this is the coastal, we have the coastal belts. We have divided into 5 portions, each 50 to 20 kilometers away. The 5 stations were selected to assess the assessment we have at the next slide. Like the wave analysis, the higher wave heights observed at 2 points, high wave heights also observed in 1 point. This is the last point of Cox's Bazar, the Sabrang area, towards the south. The wave direction, you can go to the next slide, how the wave direction is hitting the coastal land areas. It's almost perpendicular to the land line, the shoreline. Next slide, please. Next. In the last point of the Cox's Bazar, the wave is a little bit of angular, as you see. Mostly it is perpendicular towards the coastal line. Next, please. The current and wave observation we have, few observations we have, we can put it in this study in future. Hydrology of Cox's Bazar. We have achieved a few hydrological data from our different ministries. Cox's Bazar drainage map, catchment areas, the blue colors, as you see the water bodies You can observe the blue portion as the water bodies and the drainage system. The salinity institution, as you see that the red marking shows the intrusion of salinity. Majority portion of those areas are salinity intrusion based. Next. Surface water pollution. Definitely the pollution is increasing. Groundwater salinity is also increasing. The thickness of the first and second aquifer, graphically it is represented. These data will help in future to achieve our goal. Next. Top and bottom depth of first aquifer, the flood mapping. As you see in this slide, the flood mapping, the maximum water level of Cox's Bazar and flood risk zone of Cox's Bazar. The green zones are safe and mostly it's a hilly zone. Next. The flood inundation zone and development control measure. So we do study that the flood inundated area must be in our thought process so that we can avoid the development of those areas. Oh, the cyclone. There are few natural calamity we did face in the earlier years, like 2016 to 2024. Okay, next. Seismic hazard. Yes, we have to consider the earthquake, the seismic hazard also, the seismic activity of the history. We have found many of the cases that maximum the 5.5 magnitude of earthquake happened in this area. Next, please. The seismic intensity analysis, it is from the weather ministry. We have received this data. Next. Seismic intensity data here. The key observations we have here, the bathymetric analysis. You see the cross section of, it is the common cross section of the total 100 kilometer beach area. So we have the cliffs at the shoreline, habitat mapping and biodiversity. We have a huge population intensity, as well as we have the almost 2 million of Rohingya intrusion inside our country, as you all of you know. So biodiversity and the population is contradicting each other. Next, please. The dynamics of the shoreline and beach morphology. We have these data also. The Cox's Bazar, the map is showing the Cox's Bazar main township. Net, okay. Mathematic mapping of Cox's Bazar. The depth range, elevation values range from approximately. This earlier slide, please. Okay, existing urban development in Cox's Bazar Shodok. You see in the Google mapping, Google Earth, and the majority, almost the 80 kilometer of the area is not under development. Definitely, it has some biodiversity, and we are preserving this area for development. And definitely, the controlled development will be there in future, so that the biodiversity and the geological requirements are fulfilled. Okay, so I'm at the end point. The data I had been showing to all of you, these data will help us in future for what? Definitely, the objective we are now going to achieve. For that, the initial observations do not indicate the confirmed subsidence of this area. Definitely, we need more study. Comprehensive integrated assessment and enhanced monitoring. Please, let me finish, please. Comprehensive integrated assessment and enhanced monitoring are definitely required to evaluate potential risk and inform preventive planning and regulatory measures. This assessment may be undertaken definitely by the CECP Sinking Cities project, which we used to see. So thank you very much to all of you. Let's go forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tarat. I think what your presentation really emphasized, really are the types and the volume of data and information that really go into informing decision making, and especially will be important as we go forward through the project to develop a methodology for the preventive measures as you highlighted in your last slide. And with that, that really leads very much into the next presentation, which is really about national systems and prevention. So we're welcomed online by Mr. Rohit Lahoti, the Program Manager of Urban Development and Cities Program from the World Resources Institute, or WRI, based in India. Mr. Lahoti, over to you. And if you would, please limit your presentation to 5 minutes so we have time for discussion.
Sure. Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Great, thanks. So yeah, just to clarify, like it's not that much into national systems and prevention, but what I'm going to actually talk about today is an ongoing study which we are doing at WRI India in collaboration with the Brihan Mumbai Municipal Corporation, Aquadam, which is Advanced Center for Water Resources Development and Management, who's our technical partner, and Paniyak Samiti team, which is basically essentially translates to Water Rights Committee based in Mumbai. So next, I'll just set the context before I present a deep dive into the work. So in WRI India, like one of our backbone has been the climate and air pollution risk and vulnerability assessment, which we did, followed by subsequent reports into really understanding the hazard and vulnerability assessment. And one of the key findings has been how almost like 35% of Mumbai's residents actually live within the 250 meters of flood hotspots. And it's the map which you see on your right. It's actually from the same study. And in fact, Mumbai Climate Action Plan, which we were the key partner, classifies city also as a high risk zone, not just for flooding, and there are multiple hazards. Now, with a particular focus on that, one of the things which we realized while further deep diving into this, that how the existing interventions often focus on more rapid surface drainage and which will lead to flood mitigation, but they essentially neglect the whole stormwater and groundwater connection, which also has to be recognized. And that is where we chose to move also in terms of the aquifer study, what we are trying to move towards a more hydrogeological, catchment-based, data-driven and community-centric approach towards water resilient city. So next. So this was one of the studies which we had done. It was a working paper, which what you see essentially on the map is how there is this whole increase in paved surfaces, such as roads and buildings and a lot of built infrastructure, which actually leads to a complete transformation in the national infrastructure. And so on the left, what you see, these are all the catchment, basically high and very high and moderate recharge potential zones. And this is basically the year 2000, so it's little dated, the information, but what this also led us understand from a very high level understanding is how the new development that happened in Mumbai region within the radius of 0 to 50 kilometers, actually the 11% of new development from year 2000 to 2015 has been on high and very high recharge potential zones. Having said that, this is purely based on the satellite. The study was based on the satellite understanding on the contours and the vegetation, which led us to really understand at a high level, but how do we really see when it comes to the more detailed granular understanding? Next. And this is something which is building on a lot of the earlier speakers and the context setting which was done, right? How there is this massive urbanization and groundwater interaction, especially in Asian cities like Mumbai and so many other cities. We see that how increase in urbanization and this subsequent increase in impervious surfaces with a lot of concretization has actually blocked the natural percolation, turning the potential recharge that could have happened into surface runoff, right? The second thing, of course, is this whole subsurface alteration, right? Like the taller buildings we see, the more higher we go, the more deeper we need to go in the ground. And that leads to a lot of subsurface alteration, because not just of the buildings, but also a lot of the metro projects, the huge transportation projects, and the basements that are constructed, which actually obstructs the natural flow of water and also leading to alteration of the local geomorphology. And another very important thing is this whole heavy extraction, right? Which is kind of relates to our topic in discussion around land subsidence. So with with this whole increase in the extraction, because in Mumbai also a majority of the dependence is on groundwater when it comes to construction. Now, over reliance on this alternative source, which is the groundwater, leads to this whole mining effect, right? Which leads to this withdrawal rates, which actually outpaces the natural replenishment, which often is then one of the main causes for the sinking water table and the sinking land subsidence, what we see. So, and also one important point, sorry, in the earlier slide, I want to mention is this proximity to ocean also leads to a lot of seawater intrusion into the groundwater, which can increase its salinity, putting underground infrastructure at risk of corrosion. So that's also an important thing to understand, especially in cities like Mumbai and a lot of other coastal cities. Next. So now with this sort of a background, one of our key, this is an ongoing project, we are almost a year into this, has been really understanding the aquifer, doing an aquifer mapping study in a pilot. We are doing this as a pilot area in one of the rivers. It's called Meethi River in Mumbai, and we are doing this in the upper subcatchment. And the idea is to have a watershed approach, and not because, again, like we all understand how aquifers and water does not really flow as per the administrative boundaries, right? And what you see on the left is also the uppermost subcatchment of Meethi River, and which is our pilot site. And almost 50-50 division, we'll see like 50% actually falls within the natural areas, which is one of the national parks right in the city, which we have here in Mumbai. And 50% is actually in the dense urban settlements. And our approach essentially has been through twofold, which is a primary survey and the secondary analysis, data analysis. So in the primary survey, what we are essentially doing is actually going on ground, mapping different wells, bore wells, springs, to understand the water table, understand the geological exposures, because it's important to also understand what is the different layers of rocks and the soil patterns which are there. Over and above, of course, understand the water quality testing. Along with that, really getting those data from the geo borehole logs that are there in the metro digging and a lot of construction that is happening, to also parallelly understand the surface layers, the geological layers which are there underground. So
May I
really
ask you
a detailed
to
sort
wrap
of,
up, please?
yeah. Just the next slide, which is the last one. And then, so what is our sort of a potential way we are looking at this study is broadly it's in the fourfold approach. One is of course the regional data integration, right? So when we do mapping, it helps us create some sort of a common language, because we know that it does not really synchronize with the administrative boundaries. So how can this common language will help us in really regional cooperation, helping different districts and areas to understand cross-boundary issues and think about certain decisions. Then it is also allows for targeted action. So understanding and layering, having this aquifer map as a layer also with another layer of subsidence hotspots will help us really precise interventions and more specific policy responses. The third thing, which is essentially our sort of work also, with which we are grounding it within WRI, where we have this as a subsurface understanding within the development plan, which can potentially lead to better spawn city infrastructure, what we also saw in the earlier presentation, by understanding where we even place those parks and permeable pavements and various such NBS nature-based solutions in the recharge zones and not in locations where it will actually not lead to that result. And lastly, the whole approach of governance and partnerships become very important then, because we are talking about cities like which are like Mumbai's 20 million people, right? So we really need those whole decentralized manner in which the governance is also addressed, where we have local partnerships, which leads to that better data driven community base. So essentially it's a socio hydrogeological project and not just a very scientific sort of a project, which will lead to better understanding of what happens below the surface and help us really make better decisions as a city.
Thank you very much. Thank you also for highlighting the importance of watershed approaches and understanding natural water resources and the importance of mapping aquifers. With that, that's the end of the presentations. I know we do have a couple of interventions from the floor. Let me first call on Mr. Kumar Meena, who's the Director of SDG Division, Niti Aayog in India. If you could very briefly, your intervention.
Thank you so much for the insightful presentation. And building upon Mr. Lohati's presentation about Mumbai, I would like to say that in India, about 40% population is going to live in urban areas by 2030. So there is going to be significant strain on the cities. and at the same time coupled with climate change related extreme events. For example, cyclones, flood, heat waves, water scarcity, drought-like conditions. India has started integrating a climate change into a smart city framework. And for this, we have started one mission, Atal Mission for Rejuvenation and Urban Transformation. It has been launched in 500 cities of India for as part of this, we are doing master plan development of all of these cities. And it involved geo database creation, GIS based master plan development. So this process is on in 500 cities. And at the same time, we have started smart city missions in 100 cities. And as part of this important initiative of land subsistence, we are monitoring water supply systems and for reducing water leakages and storm water management. And as part of this mission, there is a special focus on developing green spaces so that on the basis of the watershed approach, and water can be made to seep in the ground, and groundwater level can be increased. So there is a special focus for developing urban green spaces, and it will help in biodiversity conservation, education, and community participation as well. So India is focusing on a very holistic way for developing its cities so that the future requirement can be met in a very sustainable manner. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And we would very much welcome Niti Aayog's engagement in the community of practice. So we'll come back to you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. We're also joined by a representative of the major group for children and youth, Ms. Salma Ranjita Kaya Riani. Over to you for a very brief intervention, please.
Okay. Thank you, Chair. My name is Salma Ranggita Cahirani. I'm speaking as the network coordinator from UNSDS and Youth Indonesia and the major group of pro children. So building on the examples shared from several countries, one of the most effective interventions in addressing the land subsidence has been expansion of the pipe water infrastructures, and combined with the stricter groundwater extraction regulations, where particularly in Jakarta in Indonesia, the root cause is of the subsidence in many of our cities is because of the excessive of our groundwater pumping. And when households and industries lack reliable pipe supply, and extraction becomes very inevitable. So the shift towards expanding equitable piped water access has reduced dependency on the groundwater areas where implementation has been consistent. But however, the technical measures alone were insufficient, and adaptation to local conditions required regulatory enforcement and permit restructuring and coordination between water authorities and special planners and municipal governments. And a key lesson from our experience is that prevention works best when government systems are aligned, and when enforcement is weak or responsibilities are fragmented across agencies. So extraction continues despite regulations. And one of the examples is that the community-led recharge initiatives, such as we created infiltration wells and rainwater harvesting. And we have demonstrated a strong local ownership, but without a metropolitan level coordination and catchment protections, these efforts remain limited in a big scale. And from the youth perspective, we see that there's 3 enabling factors. We need integrated governance, science-based water balance planning, and long-term political commitment. Because land subsidence is not only a technical issue, it reflects on how water system, urban development, and institutional accountability intersects. And we hope that the community practice, we can support knowledge exchange and regulatory enforcement models, and also data integration tools and prevention on first urban water strategies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. A very good message, and especially as it relates to protecting the water and natural resources for future generations. So thank you very much. We're about out of time, but we do have closing remarks from my colleague, Ms. Kazuko Ishigaki, Regional Representative of UN Habitat's Asian Pacific Office. Kazuko, over to you, please.
Thank you very much. Distinguished guests, partners, and friends, as we conclude this session, allow me to thank all co-organizers and participants for bringing this important dialogue to APFSD 13. Today's discussion has reinforced why land subsidence is so often described as a silent crisis. The importance and impact of land subsidence are visible: flooding, infrastructure damage, displacement, and the mounting economic and human losses. Yet, the underlying drivers, such as excessive groundwater extraction, fragmented planning system, and insufficient institutional coordination, often remain far less visible within policy frameworks. So it's this gap between visible consequences and the invisible underlying risk drivers that makes land subsidence such a profound governance challenge. So this session reflects a growing regional recognition that sustained collaboration is essential in this regard, as all panelists emphasized. Holding this dialogue within the framework of APFSD is particularly meaningful. It situates the issues squarely within the 2030 agenda. Land subsidence directly affects progress on SDG 11 by undermining safe, resilient, and sustainable urban development. It's inseparable from SDG 6 on water management. It calls for innovation and resilient infrastructure under SDG 9. And it depends fundamentally on partnerships under SDG 17. It also speaks directly to SDG 13, climate change, as managing subsidence is an essential component of climate adaptation and risk reduction. It's clear that sinking cities are not sectoral issues, not technical issues, and they are cross-cutting institutional development priority to achieve all sustainable development goals. Sinking is irreversible, but prevention or slowing it down or mitigation is possible, and it doesn't cost millions of dollars. Response must be equally integrated. Monitoring system and geospatial technologies provide essential foundation on which resilience is built through coherent urban planning, enforceable regulatory frameworks, coordinated water and land governance, nature-based solutions, and inclusive institutions that translate evidence into long-term policy. So today's session has been particularly valuable in examining how diverse cities are managing risk at different stages, and in identifying lessons that can inform coordinated regional action. If unmanaged, land subsidence locks cities into escalating adaptation costs. It undermines infrastructure investments, and shortens the lifespan of public spaces, public assets, and increase long-term fiscal risks. So early intervention is therefore not only environmentally responsible, but it's economically sound. Local governments stand at the front line of this challenge. They must regulate groundwater extraction, strengthen land use planning, enforce building standards, and invest in resilient infrastructure, too often with limited financial and technical capacity. Strengthening local government's capacity is therefore central to effective action. Without equipping cities with the necessary tools, capacities, and resources, even the most advanced technologies will not translate into resilience. Through the initiative, Confronting the Silent Crisis of Asia-Pacific Sinking Cities, ESCAP and UN Habitat, with the support of the government of China, have launched the Sinking Cities Community of Practice. And with today's second session convened here at APFSD, that platform is moving forward and strengthen the link between city-level practice and regional-level dialogue. The insights shared today will feed into the ESCAP Commission session. and the World Urban Forum 13 in Baku, Azerbaijan, ensuring continuity across regional and global processes. And these forums will provide an important space to elevate these discussions within the broader global dialogue on urban resilience and climate adaptation. Through continued collaboration within this community of practice and across regional platforms, we can ensure that this silent crisis becomes a catalyst for transformative and coordinated action. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kazuko. With that, that brings this session to an end. I would ask if anyone is interested in joining the community of practice to see any of the UN Habitat colleagues, please raise your hands, or any of the ESCAP colleagues or APTIM colleagues in the room, and that way we can make sure that you're engaged continuously. There is an evaluation questionnaire QR, if you wouldn't mind filling that out. And also you'll see additional information in the QR codes on some analysis of the issue in the region. Okay. Thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of the forum.